Hello and welcome to a solo episode of Creatively Eccentric. I've just been thinking lately about the things that I create and design and concepts and ideas. One thing that keeps on coming up is I have this inner turmoil kind of battle that I go on and on a journey of questioning myself, and like a lot of artists and designers do. But one thing I always ask is, when do I hold on to an idea and let it continue and flourish? And when do I let go of an idea? So, those are the questions I have for you. When do you decide, okay, this is a great idea? And when do you get deep into coming up with some solutions and problem solving and coming up with some creative solutions to something that you're doing right now? And when in part of your process do you decide, how long does it take for you to realize that this isn't going to go anywhere? Because there's a lot of people who have this skill where they know when things aren't going to go very well. They just drop the idea and go, right, we don't need to spend much time on it. It takes 5 minutes. That's all we need to do. We move on. And there's some people, and I think I'm more in this category, where I think maybe it needs a bit more time to flourish. Maybe it needs more time to breathe. But the problem is, if you're in a world of deadlines and structure and systems, and I need to get this done by a certain time, there's no time for that to happen, for it to breathe, to develop. Are you a creative that needs to experiment, to try different methods, to have no time on it, and you just want to let things go the way they want to go, and you want to produce some interesting, unusual ways of thinking, of doing things and creating? But the problem you're having, and I think I do this to myself, is like I don't give myself the credibility that I deserve, because I find that if you're going to develop an idea, I do find that some ideas need to be nurtured and some ideas need to fail and fall by the wayside. So, how do you come up with this issue of, how do you solve this problem of solving problems and coming up with ideas, when to hold on to them and when to let go of them? It might be an interesting discussion to have with you, because I can easily hold on to quite a lot of ideas to the point where it's almost a little bit stifling. There's some things that you shouldn't just dismiss and throw away. For example, if you're an illustrator or someone who's a sketch artist, you probably have loads of sketchbooks stashed away that you might just do a few doodles, do a few drawings, and then you store them, and then you never ever look at them. And there are some people who always go back to them, refer to them, analyze them. See, that could be a specific idea I have in mind. That could be a concept that could develop into something more. But there are some people who take an idea, run with it, and immediately it comes into something of fruition. And there are some ideas that take years, or maybe never ever will ever come to the light of day. And I think I need to maybe categorize or maybe separate, or some way of deciding what needs to be developed and what things need to just be fallen by the wayside. Because that's probably just human nature. We all have this kind of conflict in ourselves. Do we keep on going with this? Do we persevere? Or do we know when the end of the road has approached? When it comes to concepts, ideas, illustrations, drawings, whatever we're doing as creatives, when do we know it is the end of the road for this idea? I think this is probably the natural human way, as especially for designers and artists and entrepreneurs. This is how we think. And it's always good to have this kind of conflict sometimes, because sometimes out of unusual situations, simple situations, where we come up with the most interesting, innovative ideas. And I think we need just to make sure that we don't hold ourselves too accountable, because sometimes we need to let the leash go a bit when it comes to being a designer, that we don't need to be so rigid in our processes. So if something doesn't work, That's fine. If something needs more time, that's okay. I think maybe having a mixture of the two might be more beneficial. This is just a thought I was having just recently. And I do know that I can hold on to some ideas for a long, long time. And actually, I do have an idea on top of another idea where I want to go back to some of my old projects, way back, even to far as back as my university days, because there's some concepts that I liked that I could have developed. And the reason why I probably want to go back to them is because I've changed as a person, and some ideas that might have been okay at the time could be more or maybe slightly different. So the projects that you have that are sitting in that sketchbook that you've forgotten about, maybe you could just rummage through those pages and see what kind of ideas that you have. That you could get an idea from your original ideas. So don't be too tough on yourself when it comes to something that doesn't work out. Know when to cut those apron strings of that concept and idea and move on. Because to be honest, most of these ideas, because you might not be in the right headspace for coming up with a certain concept. There's so many ideas that I've had that are coming from different directions, and I thought, no, this isn't right for me right now. I'll put it to a side, and maybe I can come back to it and resurrect it, and then maybe it will come into something different because maybe you're not in the right mindset to develop it further because that's not where you are at that moment in time. So tell me, what ideas have you thought, great, work, no problem, I can run with it? And what ideas have you had to park to one side and come back to? And why do you think this way, if you do think this way? Because I think this is not unusual for designers and creators. We've got a lot of information coming from all sides. There's a lot of pressure on us to produce things by certain deadlines. And there's some people who actually think and create better when there's hardly any time to do anything. But there are some artists and designers who need the time to absorb and develop and nurture those concepts and ideas. Tell me what you're thinking right now. Do you have an idea that you could develop that you thought would never come to fruition? I'd love to know your opinions. Until the next episode, take care.